Welcome to Sensitive Changemakers, the podcast where we celebrate the power of sensitivity and introversion in leadership, entrepreneurship, and beyond. I'm Kate Carter, your host, a certified professional coach, HSP, and introvert who is passionate about helping you embrace your unique gifts and lead with authenticity. This recording is a very special one, and I really do hope you enjoy it. Let's dig in. Today's guest was introduced to me by the lovely Emma Louise Parks, so a shout out to her. She has her own podcast called Deeply Rested, and she is a true kindred spirit who looks at business through that sensitive lens. So I am thrilled to welcome Megginson to the Sensitive Changemakers today. Thank you so much for being here. And for those who don't know Megan, she is a fully licensed therapist and a holistic business mentor. And you do an amazing job at weaving the emotional and spiritual elements together to support people to become deeply rested and wildly successful. Megan, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you would like to add to that bio?
I think you covered it. And I'm so happy to be here, Kate. So thank you
Yeah,
for having me. I'm sure we're going to get into more details in the conversation.
absolutely.
So as a starting point, that feels like a really lovely introduction. I'm
Thank you.
honored.
Thank you. And I'm going to
Yeah.
caveat this conversation by saying that I think we both like talking in detail. And so this is
Yeah.
not going to be a short, shallow conversation by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm caveating that right now so that everybody can
Oh,
get comfortable and deeply rested, I
settle
feel.
in. Oh, I'm so happy. I mean, like small talk gives me a literal stomach ache.
Yes.
It hurts. It hurts. If I'm going to be present, make it worth my time. Let's
Yes.
go deep. And I know you and I had a phone chat a couple of weeks ago, and it just was, I told you afterwards, balm for the soul, just to have a conversation where so quickly you can really get below the surface and
Yes.
travel to some interesting places. Yeah. So I'm really excited to do that again this morning.
I just really wanted to have Megan on the show because I think she is wildly successful, but also she has had such a journey to get here. I think that's right in saying, would you agree?
Absolutely.
And I think it's just such a wonderful way of opening this up to more people, to show more people that they get to be whoever they are and
Mm-hmm.
they get to be successful. So I really,
Mm-hmm.
really am on a bit of a mission on that one. So, Megan,
Yes.
would you just kind of give us a, well, it doesn't have to be a brief overview, it could be a deep dive
Mm.
into what's your journey been like?
Yes. Oh, I would love to share. And I'll start with a disclaimer for everybody listening, which is that over the last 15 years, I have really discovered in my own life that the deeper you go into personal growth and personal healing, the more twisty and turny your life path becomes. It's like you're not on the straight and narrow. You're not following someone else's roadmap. You're not climbing a linear corporate ladder. Your life becomes an expression of who you are and of all of the growth that you are creating within yourself. And that often leads to lives full of lots of pivots,
Hmm.
so many pivots. You're constantly just twisting and turning and doing unexpected things. And my journey definitely matches that process. I just like to say that before we dive in, because I think so many people, Kate, and I'm curious if you find this with the people that you work with, think that there's something wrong with them
Hmm.
when they make big pivots in their life, right? Maybe they like started down one career path and then 5 or 10 years in realized they needed to do something totally different. They have to kind of pivot and start from scratch a little bit in the new area, and they have so much self-judgment
Hmm.
about that. Like, well, what's wrong with me? I got it wrong the first time, and like now I'm
Yes.
a beginner again. And I just like to say right out of the gate, no, you're not. Like, people who pivot, I think, are some of the deepest, wisest, most courageous people on this planet. And I'm here to celebrate that.
I love that
Um,
you've said that already.
Great. Do you find that in
I
in on
absolutely
your
do.
journey or with your people?
I absolutely do. Definitely with me, I made myself so wrong because I
Yeah.
wanted to change things, and it took me a
Oh.
long time to kind of make peace with that and think that's okay.
Mhm.
Even if people listen to the podcast from the very first time that I started it until now, they will see
Yeah.
like big shifts, little shifts all the way through as I'm trying to find my feet. And so I love that you said that. And it definitely is something that we bring to sessions quite a lot, about how it's okay and normalizing those shifts and
Right.
actually leaning into some of them sometimes
Mm-hmm.
rather than leaning
Mm-hmm.
back. So I love the fact that you've started with that. Yes.
And I love the way you just said, I made myself wrong. Like
Mm-hmm.
all of the ways that we make ourselves wrong or bad because we're doing something that isn't status quo, that isn't conventional. But the sensitive path is non-conventional
Mm-hmm.
by its very nature. And I think the more we celebrate that and just lean into it, like you said, the richer and more exciting my life becomes, at
Mm-hmm.
least. So let me go back to your question um, about my journey. So my journey has been, very, very windy. And I started my career as a therapist. So right out of college, I really felt a calling to become a couples therapist. Definitely was a result of my own adolescence
Yeah.
and young adulthood. It's like I have been a people pleasing, empathic perfectionist since I exited the womb. Um, so yeah, in college, of course, it made sense to me. I was like, I should be a therapist. This is what I've been doing my whole life. I'm like, this is what I know. This is what I'm good at. So I dove right into a professional career out of college as a couples therapist and um, did couples therapy for a while. Then I added sex therapy into the mix. And for a really beautiful decade, I was fully steeped in being a couples and sex therapist. And I loved the work. And to this day, looking back, I still love the work and have so much appreciation for the work. But there came a point in my journey as an entrepreneur, as a creative person on a healing journey, where like I could just feel that something didn't quite fit anymore. Like it fit for a long time. And then all of a sudden I started feeling this rub, right? This like dissonance, this little voice inside that was like, yes, and it's time for the next thing. But I was so conditioned to
Mm-hmm.
believe that you pick a career and you stick with it that I fought it and I resisted it. My poor therapist, I often laugh with her. I'm like, you must have been so bored of me for like the 3 years. Like every week, I was just talking about my ambivalence about being a therapist. Like, well, at what point did you want to just slap me in the face and be like, get on with it already? But it did take me about 3 years of like really being in this ambivalence about like, do I want to be a therapist? I think there's something else I want to do, but I don't know. And who will I be if I'm not a therapist anymore? Like so much of my identity and my early adulthood was wrapped up in I am a therapist. I'm using air quotes there. It's like
Yes.
I am a therapist, not I provide healing services, but I am a therapist. And it took a while for me to be ready to let go of this primary identity I was holding on to so that I could really start feeling into more experimentation in
Mm.
my life and in my work. So during those 3 years, I started experimenting with coaching. And I felt like a little intuitive knowing that I should work with business owners, that I would really enjoy working with other smart, sensitive, empathic business owners. So I started playing around with coaching. So during that time, I was doing both.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm a glutton for punishment, during that time, I also decided to grow my therapy practice. And that, of course, is like a longer story, but the highlight of it is that my ambition was bubbling, my creative energy was bubbling, my desire for something more was so alive in my body that I started making these decisions, right? I was like, I'm going to start coaching. I'm going to hire more therapists to work for me. I'm going to create an agency, a group practice model. And all of a sudden, I'm wearing like 3 different hats. I'm
Mm.
employer, I'm therapist, I'm business coach. And one day it was too much, right? It just got to the point where I was like, I need to pick a lane because really like what I'm doing, I'm draining my batteries. First of all, like I am not energetically built to do all of this,
Mm-hmm.
but also like I'm actually just not trusting my intuition is
Mm-hmm.
what this is. So my intuition is very clearly telling me move to the right, right? Move in the direction of like you've gotten what you needed from being a therapist. It's time for you to show up and work in a different way. It's time for you to serve a different type of person. But I was really scared to do that because I had created this incredibly successful career really early in my life. And whoa, it would be mad for me to just abandon ship. What was I thinking? I put all this time, all this energy into creating this career. I was well known, I was successful, but I just knew deep inside that I needed to let it go and I needed to trust that there was something else calling to me. I can tell you about what happened at that point, but I have been talking for a while now, so I'm just going to pause and be like, what do you think about this? Does any of this resonate for you, Kate?
Yes, there is. And there's a couple of things that come up. So there's three big questions, and I hope I can remember them all. The first one is, did you feel an element of grief because you were kind of having to face that? And I wonder if, I know this was definitely the case for me, you're in a successful career, you know that you're good at what you do, you're probably being told that you're good at what you do, and then you're being pulled in this other direction and it feels a bit torn. And then when you do realize you've got to go to the right, like you were saying, and follow that, there comes with it an element of grief, of losing, almost like you said, because it's such a huge part of your identity, it feels like you're losing a part of yourself. So I think I've combined two of my questions together there. But how does that feel true for you?
100%. I underestimated in the process how much grief there would be. And I underestimated, as per usual, how much time and space and energy I needed to protect, to be with my grief and to process through my grief. And I noticed that my grief during this transition showed up in lots of different ways. And there's one other piece you kind of just mentioned it. I'm going to put a pin in it because it could be interesting for us to circle back to, which is what it's like for the ego when you move away from something you are really good at and you're getting a lot of feedback that you're really good at, and you move away from that and into something where you're a total beginner.
Yes.
Like that's been a whole process too. Okay, but the grief part, yeah, there was definitely grief around, grieving this part of my process, this part of my identity that had served its purpose. And I think so much of the pivoting process for people who are doing this work and are allowing their journeys to unfold organically is learning how to celebrate beautiful endings.
Yes.
Because culturally, we're really conditioned to fear endings and to try to avoid endings. We want to keep something going as long as possible. We're afraid of death. We're afraid of grief. And that, for me, stepping away from being a therapist was one of my first deep grief processes in my life that wasn't about an actual death. So there was so much, I learned so much in that time about endings and composting what is no longer serving you, and how to, I think, creating ritual during these transition times is so powerful, to really ritualize, yes, the part of me that was a therapist, she has died. That doesn't mean she's not still with me. It doesn't mean I don't carry remnants of that part of me in my body, but she is no longer, driving the bus of my life. That part has died. So there was grief about that. And then something I really didn't anticipate was the tremendous grief I felt saying goodbye to my clients.
Yeah.
Because many of the clients that I was working with at the time when I decided that I was going to hang my hat had been with me for years, like many, many years. I had deep, intimate relationships with these people, and saying goodbye to them was really hard. And explaining to them what was happening and why I was making this choice. In their mind, they're like, oh my, I love my therapist. She's young, she's healthy. Like, she's going to be my therapist for the next 30 years. And then to have to be like, hey, actually, I'm retiring from being a therapist. And then having to have that conversation over and over and over again. And I made a little mistake back then, which was I gave people way too much notice. I gave people it was almost, I think I told them it was 6 or 9 months before I was actually had decided this will be my last day. And I wanted people to have plenty of time, but then it just ended up being like I was in 6 months of grief processing with so many people, just every week. It was just grief, grief, grief. But there were so many lessons in that too. So yeah, like the grief was present. The grief was present from multiple angles. And I'm a lot more comfortable with those endings now. And with that kind of grief now, I'm able to discern when something needs to end much more quickly. I'm able to take action much more quickly. And I'm able to like move through the grief process much more quickly. Not that like being fast with your grief is the goal, but I just like people to know that if you're in an emotional process right now that feels like it's taking forever and it's just like so hard to move through, like that does get easier over time as you really learn how to do it and you get more comfortable in your own body, allowing yourself to move and flow with your intuition.
And that brings me beautifully onto what I love talking about when we were having our kind of coffee chat, which is the importance of listening to the body and the importance of listening to emotions. And how I was having this conversation, I have it quite often actually, with just friends and family, about how we're never taught about how to process emotions and how you really can get stuck in them if
Yeah.
if you're never guided. And I just think it's a wonderful light that you've really shone on, number one, intuition, because I think intuition is kind of all encompassing in this as well, because a lot of people don't know what their intuition is. They don't know how to follow it. They don't know how to flow with it. And then this side, like you were saying, of when you're actually sitting and processing those emotions and you're actually allowing yourself to go through that process, how actually when you come out the other side, it doesn't, if it does come up again, it doesn't take quite as long as it did the first time, and you're aware of how to kind of again flow with it and roll with it. So there's a couple of things that are coming up for me, and I think the first thing I'd really like to talk about is the intuition side of things, because you were talking about that quite a lot. How does that, or how did that present itself to you? Because I'm just wondering if there's anybody listening thinking, I think I need to change, but I'm not sure. How can I tap into that side of myself and listen?
What a juicy question. With no simple answers, but I'm going to try to make it simple. So much of the work that I do now is about, well, if we're thinking about it from an intellectual standpoint, the work I do now is about helping entrepreneurs decondition from exploitative capitalism and patriarchy, right? How do we start to really see how these larger oppressive systems that we are living inside of find their way into our bodies and become these like default patterns and these default like decision making mechanisms. So you can feel yourself making decisions through a conditioned lens, through your internalized capitalism, your internalized patriarchy, the rules of your family, the rules of the religion you grew up in, or the community that you lived in, or the school that you went to. When you are choosing things quickly, automatically, and often from a place of energetic urgency. So if you feel yourself like, oh, I got to make a choice, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And you're like, you're choosing default without thinking about it. That's first of all, a really good sign that you're not in your intuition. This is what it is, Kate. It's like, before we talk about how to listen to your intuition, we have to talk about how to know when you're not listening to your intuition. So first, really normalizing that me, all of us, like we were born into a society with an unspoken set of rules and expectations. And those rules and expectations are infused into our nervous systems, into our brains every single day of our lives. So we don't know that this is happening. We're not walking around typically thinking about, I wonder how consumerism is impacting the way I think about my business. You're not thinking about that, but it is. And you are making these default decisions from these deeply conditioned places. And those decisions happen fast, they happen rapidly, and they don't feel good. So there might be like a sense of ease in that you're not really thinking about it, and you're not really sitting in like a lot of discomfort about the decisions that you're making, but the decisions themselves, like they don't make you feel good.
Yeah.
You can feel, and you're burnt out. You're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you're unhappy. You wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, like thinking about problems at work, or thinking about like, why do I feel so empty inside? A lot of high achievers will talk about like, but I'm achieving all the things, like
Yeah.
I'm checking all the boxes. I did all the things I'm supposed to do. Why do I still feel so empty inside?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So these are all ways that you can know that maybe you're not listening to your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're not, we're doing this audio only, but like I'm using my hands, and I'm like staying like up in my head.
Yes.
Because when we're operating from these conditioned places, it feels like a very heady energy.
Mm-hmm.
We're thinking a lot. It's like our minds are really, really active. But when we're ready, coming back to your question, finally, when we're ready to start dropping into our intuition and exploring how to listen to ourselves in a deeper way, our energy starts dropping
Mm-hmm.
deeper into the body. All of a sudden, you don't have so much anxiety. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have racing thoughts. You don't feel your body in that like constant state of urgency. Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
you start to like, ooh, exhale, dropping in. Your voice gets a little bit deeper. Start talking more slowly. You start really feeling your stomach, your core, your solar plexus. Like you can feel these spaces in your body in a more nuanced way. Maybe you start noticing sensations
Mm-hmm.
that you'd never really noticed before.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to slow down, usually what happens is that things get quieter. Your life gets a little bit quieter, your head gets a little bit quieter. And when you start to quiet the noise of your life, you can begin to hear the quiet whisper of your intuition. Because that's what I know about intuition is she's there, but she's quiet.
Yes.
She whispers to you. She's not interested in yelling, right? And I'm saying she because that's how I identify, but your intuition might have no gender, right? It might be a he, it doesn't matter, it might be an animal. So kind of, what is the energy like for you in your body? But whatever it is, it's pretty quiet, it's pretty subtle, and it's always there waiting for you. It's
Mm-hmm.
waiting. It's like, oh, I can't wait for Megan to chill out long enough to hear this really great advice I have for her. She'll come around when she's ready. Intuition's very patient. It's very quiet. But when you do start dropping into your body and you start getting curious about where you're making conditioned decisions in your life, you can begin to hear the voice of your own inner knowing a little bit more clearly.
I love that. And that is such a beautiful and deep response. And as you're saying that, I was thinking, okay, so one of the things that I recognize in a lot of my clients is the word should. And I love the word should because it really does shine a light on, is that your voice? Because I think it's just a wonderful invitation to explore. So I love that on the conditioned side of things, that conditioned thinking.
That's great.
And then on the intuitive side, I was getting images of like an onion, which I always use, like almost that's her in the middle. She's waiting, and it's just she's, like you said, very quiet, and it's about just peeling those layers back to allow her to kind of speak.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of image I was getting as you were talking. So I think it's just a wonderful explanation on,
or like a
how to.
lotus flower.
Yes.
It's slightly less stinky than the onion. Like I love the onion. Or it's like, yeah, like as you're saying that, I'm just thinking about when we're in our minds, when we're in the conditioning that the world has imposed upon us, we often feel like we have to do a lot of efforting to like solve our problems or get to the next stage on our journey or achieve the next goal in our business. Like we're constantly seeking answers, and we're looking usually outside of ourselves for these answers, right? We're looking for someone to tell us what to do. We're looking for someone to tell us what the next right thing is. And that's where that urgency starts kicking in. We feel like we have to do a lot of things. I've got to like listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of books and take a lot of courses and go to like therapy and coaching and acupuncture and it's like we're just constantly doing. But what we're talking about, when we're peeling back the layers of that onion to discover ourselves sitting inside of a beautiful lotus flower, we realize that the job isn't about seeking, doing, solving. It's actually just about observing.
Mm-hmm.
That finding the inner, like connecting to my inner guidance system is about releasing the belief that I need to be doing more to move myself forward and relaxing into the trust that really all I need to do is sit in the sunshine, take a deep breath, listen to the birds, and observe my own body and ask my body, ask my intuition, because it's a co-creative process. I think sometimes people, when they're beginning to connect with their intuition, will then like abdicate all of their power to this like quiet whisper. Well, I'm waiting for the quiet whisper. So I'm just not going to do anything until I hear it. I'm like, well, okay, well, now you've just swung to the opposite end of the pendulum, when really we want to find a balance in the middle. And when we're in the middle, it's like we get to co-create with our intuition. So I'm sitting, I'm observing, I'm breathing, and maybe I say, I can really sense that it's time to take a different step in my work. Is that right? What might that step be? And I start posing really simple, really direct questions to myself, to my intuition. And I pose the question and I sit and I observe and I listen. And it's really important. I'm curious your take on this, Kate. I think it's really important that we develop a practice of doing that regularly. When I'm working with people, I really encourage them to try to create a daily practice of listening, because in my experience, this guidance, this inner guidance, it doesn't come through in like one fell swoop. It's metered out a little bit at a time. And that's part of the deconditioning. That's part of the change that I am learning, that life can't be sold to me in like a PDF roadmap. That's not how this works. This is a little bit of listening every day, a little bit of pivoting, a little bit of like readjusting, course correcting every day, and trusting that that's going to lead me to where I'm meant to go. But I can only do that if I have a practice, a personal practice of slowing down, observing, listening to myself.
Yes.
That's my take on it. How does that land for you?
Yes. And I'm going to give a little bit of a personal story here. And I think I've shared this before, but I did, when I was first on my kind of personal development journey, I did one of those future versions visualizations. And I remember she was just doing everything so slow. Now, I've been brought up in a very quick place. Everything's very quick. You cook very quickly, you move very quickly. And in this visualization I had, it was very clear that she wanted to slow down. And so that's been something I've really embodied as much as I possibly can, that slowing down process. And then that was embedded further by meditation. For me anyway, that was what made the difference for me. And it wasn't necessarily traditional meditation. It was just allowing me to sit with myself. And like you said, it's that difference between doing and being. We are so obsessed with doing, and we don't give ourselves any time to be, because it doesn't look, from the outside looking in, it doesn't look like we're actually doing anything. But it's all going on inside. And I had a very poor relationship with, I would say, kind of mind, body. And that's what really helped support me, was just actually allowing myself to sit. And like you said, the more I did it, I'm not going to say the easier it became, but the simpler it became. It became something that I looked forward to, something that I could just go, oh, I wonder what's going on with Kate today, as though she was a separate person. But actually, I wonder how many people actually allow themselves to just sit with themselves and go, what's going on?
Yeah, very few. And it's not your fault. Like, I think I always love to come back around with that. Like, hey, it's not our fault that we resist spending time in stillness or observation or curiosity. Like, again, we live inside of capitalism, and capitalism has taught us since we were born that our worth is based on our productivity, and that it is our job to work and produce. And then we do that. That's how we live our lives. Like you're saying, this kind of frenetic busyness, this constant doing. Okay, but if I'm doing, then people know I'm valuable, right? I got to pull my weight. Okay, so people need to say, I need to see, I need to stay in motion. But yeah, no, that's not true. Like that's all a lie. And yes, we do have to operate inside of this system, especially as business owners. So at the end of the day, we have to find a balance. But when we're in the deconditioning process, it's like you really got to create a dramatic amount of space sometimes to like bring yourself in. Like you said, how's Kate doing today? I love that question. A couple of suggestions for people who are interested in wanting to try this, but feel kind of confused by it. I definitely think having a protected space, even if it's 15 minutes, is really important. Mm-hmm. But even that can feel inaccessible to many people, especially people with young kids, when they're first starting out. So even starting out with just like programming some alarms in your phone to ding a couple of times a day, like, hey, check in with yourself. And you use that moment, 10 seconds, close your eyes, take a deep breath, feeling into your belly. How am I doing right now? What's really happening for me in this moment? Is whatever I'm doing right now really aligned with what I want to be doing? Well, you can ask yourself whatever you want to ask. But we have to interrupt the patterns that we're so used to playing out day after day. We have to interrupt those patterns and learn to turn inward, turning inward. Journaling can be a really helpful practice if sitting still is hard. I feel really fortunate that sitting still is not hard for me. So I too really connect with meditative practices. But I know a lot of people for whom sitting still is not natural, and that's okay.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't for me. Just adding that in there. I am genuinely a fidget bum anyway, so I fidget. But like I said, I think having that curiosity really supported me back in the start of it, but just getting really curious about why do I find it? And I remember sitting here at the time trying to close my eyes and meditate, and I was like, I cannot stop moving. I am moving forward, I am moving back, I am moving my hands. I was like, oh, this is really really tough. And so yes, I started out by just doing walks, like solo walks without anybody, and then I did set myself a timer. But I love the fact of like you setting alarms throughout the day. I just did it as a timer of just sit still for 1 minute, just 1 minute, and then let's see if we can get to 2, and then that's how I did it, rightly or wrongly.
I love that, Kate. There's no right or wrong though, right? Like we're all finding our way back to ourselves, and each one of us is going to have a different journey. So I think we have to give ourselves grace and permission to try lots of different things. How can I find my way in? Because meditation is not the right choice for many women in particular. And like meditative practices sometimes can actually have a lot of masculine energy woven into them. There's like a discipline about meditation practices that some people experience, right? Where there's like a right way to do it, and you have to do it for X amount of minutes, and you have to be really still. And we get into these grooves where we then start treating meditation as like another job to be done. And it's a job that like there's a pass or fail grade attached to it. And like if you find yourself really rubbing up against that practice, a couple options, meditative type options that are more feminine in nature are dancing. Can be really powerful. If you want to take it up a notch, throw a blindfold on. Put on a couple of songs that really bring you into your body. In a room, in your office, close the door. In your bedroom, put on a blindfold. If you want to, that part's optional. And just move your body and let that be a meditative practice, right? Because at the end of the day, like, quote, meditation is really just about observing and listening to myself. So if you need to do that while you're dancing, while you're fidgeting, while you're walking in the park, while you're sitting still in meditation, it truly doesn't matter what you're doing with your body, but it needs to be something different from the status quo of your daily life so that you're really giving yourself a chance to have a different experience, right? You're giving yourself a chance to feel a little bit disoriented. I love your example, right? Of feeling like this feels really disorienting. I can only do 1 minute of this. Great. Then let's celebrate that. Let's do 1 minute of this. So I would say one way in to connecting with your intuition is through the body, meditation, movement, walking, whatever works for you. Another way that works for a lot of people is journaling. And I call it channeled journaling, where I actually try to, well, I don't try, I just let it happen because we're not trying anything here. I channel the voice of my intuition and I like write to Megan as my intuition. You can also think about your higher self, if that's a term that resonates for you. It's like when I put my pen to the page, it's my higher self, it's my intuition speaking to me. Dear Megan, here's what I want you to know today. And you just let your pen flow on the page. And you just do that until you feel complete. That's a great way to practice. And then another great way to practice, which might be like a little more on the woo side of the spectrum. So people listening, like you might be comfortable with this, you might not. If you're super uncomfortable with it, don't do it right now or ever. But it's using cards, oracle cards, tarot cards, card decks. I like to think of them as translation devices between me and my intuition, me and my higher self. So you can start a practice of asking a question, pulling a card. What does it say? What's the image? What does it evoke inside of you? What does it make you think about? And you just start pulling even just one card a day, noticing over time, can you start to feel into the conversational flow as you're using the cards? So thinking of them as a translation device. Those are 3 options for starting this practice.
I love
something meditative with movement, using cards, journaling. Yeah. Do you use cards?
Yeah, I'm just going to add in here as well. I think from what you were saying earlier about not making it wrong when you're using them is like you said, using them as a translation rather than, oh, let me get the little book that tells me what that's about. It's much more about what does that evoke within me rather than, again, giving that away to the book, the description, somebody else telling you what it says. I love the fact that it's much more of an internal discussion, almost like you're asking yourself something through the card rather than allowing the card to dictate how your day's going to go or your week is going to go.
That's right. Like it's not a fortune telling device. Right. I'm not pulling a card to like predict something that's happening. No, I'm pulling the card to deepen the conversation that I'm having with myself. One of my favorite decks is a poetry deck. I can share the link with you if you're curious.
Please.
And yeah, I really like it because the images and the words on the cards are really simple. And the book, the guidebook, each card has a poem attached, which I really love because it keeps me in that interpretive space versus some guidebooks, like you're saying, are very prescriptive. Okay, well, this card means this, and now you should do this. And sometimes that I love that. But when I'm just using this as a conversation tool with myself, yeah, you're right. That can feel really constricting. And I want this practice to open me up. I want it to feel expansive. And poetry does that for me because there's just so much room for interpretation.
Yeah, it's very subjective, isn't it? So you can take it however.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love that. And I think one of the things that I would love to deepen this conversation is to bring it around to business, because I know this is definitely something I've struggled with. And I know that you've had your kind of journey as well through this is how do you balance? And I think the conversation is very much about balance throughout this whole episode so far, is looking at that balance between either ends of a scale, whether that be kind of just listening to your body and waiting for, or not knowing how to listen to intuition, right through to that pendulum swing of only listening to that and never meeting in the middle. And so I'm really interested to hear about how do you bring and balance that masculine feminine within the business? Do you lean towards the feminine? Do you have that kind of meet in the middle? How do you bring this all together in a business space?
This is a juicy question, and I have a feeling I will be experimenting with this for the rest of my life.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Right. Like, I don't know that I'm ever going to get to a place where I'm like, I've nailed it, you know, because even that is more masculine, even like being right. Like waiting to feel like I have accomplished something or I have like mastered it or now I'm the expert. Like even that has this masculine, whereas the feminine is like, hey, you don't ever actually, like, we're never complete. We're never complete. I'm just going to share where I'm at now with that caveat that like this process, this integration, I think about it as integration work. I'm always working in my process on integrating all parts of me, integrating my masculine and feminine, integrating the personal and professional, right? All of life, I think, is about integrating into one whole. First, I want to normalize the pendulum swing. I know this from my therapy days. Well, I say I know this. This is what I experienced in my days as a therapist. That's a better way to say that. Almost all healing, growth, and transformation is experienced as a pendulum swing, right? It's like your little lead ball starts on the right side, whatever it is you're going through. And then you're like, ooh, that doesn't feel quite right. I think I want to heal that. I think I need to change that. So you start doing that work. And then you release the ball, whoosh. And the ball, because there's so much momentum, it's been hanging up here for so long. You release it and then it whoosh, it falls and then it goes to the opposite side. And then you have to spend some time on the opposite side of whatever the thing is that you're working on. This is the healing process, right? We have to, as humans, we have to feel into the boundaries of any given situation. Let's say, for example, people pleasing. So if you've been a people pleaser your whole life and you're like, I really got to let this go. I really got to work on this. And then you start truly working on it. There might be a period of time where you swing to the opposite end and you become so boundaried all of a sudden that you're actually not aligning with your core value of compassion and generosity and helping other people. But that's okay because you needed to go. You needed to feel what life was like on the other side of that continuum so that you could start to fall back and settle into the middle. And the middle is this integrated space. Is this making sense?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
And I love the fact you've got balance, integration, pendulum swings. Yes.
Yeah. We're swinging, we're settling in the middle. And this is going to happen with so many different things in our lives and in our businesses. The same is true as business owners when we are beginning that process of deconditioning. So we begin to see all of the ways that we're running our business through this kind of toxic masculine lens, because that toxic masculine is so ingrained in the system of exploitative capitalism that we've been conditioned to operate inside of. The way we've been taught to sell things, right? The way we've been taught to manipulate people. And we know as business owners, all the things that feel slimy and icky are really rooted in the toxic masculine. So we start this personal process where we're like, well, I want to let that go. I want to bring in more feminine, bring in more masculine. And for a long time, our little ball on this pendulum is just swinging kind of wildly back and forth from side to side. So step one, embrace the chaos of this process, like embrace the disorientation of this process, because I don't know how to do this integration work without feeling dizzy from time to time. Does that resonate for you?
Yeah. And I think that going back right to the start of the conversation, that feels like where the pivoting comes in.
Yeah.
Is finding that integration, is finding your place and allowing yourself to swing with the pendulum.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. I think this is why most people opt out of personal growth
Yes.
in their lives, because it's not for the faint of heart. It's a lot. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of destabilization. It's a lot of chaos. It takes a bold, courageous spirit to say, I'm going to grow. I'm going to heal. I'm going to transform. And then you multiply that by like 17,000 when you're also a small business owner.
Yes.
Because not only are you opening yourself up to the internal chaos of transformation, but now you're opening your business up to it too. And your business is even more conditioned by these systems than you are. Right? So lots of grace.
Yeah.
As we are all working on bringing more feminine into our businesses. It is a messy, messy process. And she loves that. The feminine loves that. I mean, think about birth. Think about childbirth, right? It's bloody. It's messy. It's intense. Like that is going to be true in our process too. I don't say that to like freak people out, just to be like, yeah, you got to embrace the mess. Like this process is inherently really messy. For me, I think a lot when I'm working on my business and I'm thinking about how do I bring together the masculine and the feminine in my business, the words that often show up for me are finding a focused but flexible balance of structure and soul, right? Because what the healthy masculine brings to our businesses is focus and structure. Just enough structure that we can move forward with ease, that we know what we're doing, we know who we're selling to. There's a clear order of operations behind how people come in, how we market, and then people come into our ecosystem. They join our audience. We nurture them. We sell them one thing, then we sell them something else. Like, we do have to have a process like that. Our business has to have some structure so that people in the rest of the world can make sense of what we're doing inside of our businesses. And in my messy transformation process, there was a solid year, 18 months when I was in my swing away from the masculine and all the way over to the feminine. And what happened for me in that year was I felt amazing, but my sales, my revenue went way down because what I was doing became way less clear to the people who were interested in what I had to say. So people stayed in my orbit because they were like, they were getting something out of witnessing my process, and they felt really connected to what I was talking about. But I was having a hard time translating what was coming through me into selling something that made sense to somebody else. So I'm in this process now of really working on bringing a little more masculine back in to my business with clarity and structure so that people understand how I can help them and are so excited to work with me and to pay me. The feminine brings to that process creative flow, ease, slowness, right? The feminine really helps me not get sucked into urgency. Urgency is your one-way ticket to burnout. When you feel yourself in a rush, when you feel an internal pressure to move faster, whoop, that's not you. That's not innate to who you are. That comes from outside of you. So the feminine really helps us root into the earth. The feminine helps us feel into our intuition, helps us hear in a much deeper and clearer way how we are meant to be of service. What is our deeper purpose? And this, for me, really connects to a more spiritual belief about life, about the universe, right? That I believe that we all have a part to play, right? That we're all here to contribute something every single day. Sometimes we're conscious of what it is, sometimes we're not, but we're all here to do something. And the feminine energy helps me connect to what I'm here to do and how I'm meant to serve, so that I'm never just doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing, or as you said earlier, what I should be doing. Because what I should be doing isn't actually how I am meant to be of service. And you know you're doing what you're meant to be doing when you love it so much and it comes out of you with so much ease. And you're just like in love with your work. You're in love with it. And it's like, yes, I have found that alignment. But if I don't bring some of that masculine structure focus into the mix, it's not going to be translated to the people who are all operating in this material world. What do you think?
Yeah,
How's
makes
that land?
absolute sense. It does. I think it's perfectly explained. I think it's a wonderful way of, like I said, the words for me that I'm going to take away: integration, which seems like a deeper word than balance. It seems more about finding that sweet spot of just, and also the integration allows you to play around with the extremes almost as well. It feels very permission given to have that is an idea that you're allowed to feel your way through. And I think that needs to be normalized more. I think especially in the online space, and especially for small business owners, especially with that sensitivity angle as well. If we look at, and this is something that came up earlier when you were talking about intuition and feeling into your body, I do wonder how many of us who are listening to this, who are highly sensitive, have actually learnt to push all of that away. Maybe they experienced it very young, and they were probably labeled as too much, and not, there was probably no malice intended, but just it didn't fit into society. It didn't fit into what the normal construct was about. So that's too much. You're not allowed to show that. So you've got to find a way of burying that and pushing that down. I wonder if that for a lot of people has become the norm. And so this episode, I think, will be so wonderful for a lot of people to listen to allow themselves to really feel back into that too muchness. Like, what was that I wasn't ever allowed to feel, or I was told that it was wasn't allowed. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh. You're just like, yeah, that blows my mind a little bit. I'd never thought about it that way, but it's so true. Like that our sensitive traits are the embodiment of feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the patriarchy that we live inside of wants to squash it, because they don't like it. They're very threatened by the feminine energy, which is sad. Well, the toxic masculine, right, is threatened by the feminine energy. The healthy masculine is not. The healthy masculine loves the feminine energy and realizes that it's not about gender at all. But I love what you're saying, that like as sensitive people, like what a gift. Our sensitivity is a direct line of communication to our intuition. That we are able to sense emotion and sensation in our bodies, that we're able to like hear ourselves in such a deep and nuanced way. Like our sensitivity is our intuition in so many ways. And yes, I love this invitation that you're posing. Look at the track record of your life and start to identify all of the people, places, things, systems that made you believe you needed to shut that down, bury that, burn it in a flaming trash can because it was like dangerous, bad, wrong, and reclaim it. Because the beautiful thing is, like, no matter how hard the world tried to beat it out of you, no matter how hard you tried to suppress it within yourself, it's still here. You can't destroy her. You can't. She's just waiting for you to invite her back in. And inviting her back in is as simple, again, like we were talking about, as standing in the sunshine, taking a few deep breaths, leaving your phone at home in the house, and saying, I'm here. I'm listening. Let's play.
Yes.
What are we doing? Wow. Like that's when I have found in my process and with all the people that I work with, like that is when life becomes magical.
Yes. And I think the thing that I would love to add there as well, because I know how I felt when I was on this, was, but it's not happening yet. And I think it's just a reminder that it doesn't, like you were saying earlier, it doesn't happen in one big kind of moment where you just go, oh, this is it. Yes, I'm here and I'm amazing and I can feel all these different things. It really, for me anyway, was very much a drip. It felt like a drip at a time.
Practice. It's a drip at a time. I totally agree. It's a practice. Sometimes I don't love this analogy in all ways, but I think it works. You don't just wake up one day and go, I think I want to run a marathon. You know, like you never go to the gym. You haven't exercised since gym class in high school. And you don't just wake up and go, I think I'm going to run a marathon tomorrow and then go do it. No, it's a practice. You have to exercise. You have to condition. Exactly. Thanks for naming that. Yeah. Cause we don't want to set the bar so high, right? That people like try it once and then they're like, oh, not for me. I can't do it. Yes, you can. We all can. This is like innate to the human experience, but it is something that we have to commit to with love and devotion. Something that is really important to me is moving away from discipline and towards devotion. So discipline is a byproduct of all of these harmful systems that we're talking about, right? You got to be disciplined. You got to run 1 mile every day, and then you got to sit for 45 minutes, and then you got to do it just like this. And there's all these rules, and there's a right way and a wrong way. No, devotion. I'm doing this because I love myself. I'm doing this because I want to be of service. I'm doing this because I know I have some deeper work that wants to come through me. I'm doing this because I believe that I deserve to be rested and joyful. When we start to establish these practices from a place of devotion, we are so much more motivated to show up and do them every day because they feel so joyful, right? They're so full of love. So whatever you take away from this conversation today, like it's my hope that you bring that spirit of devotion to meeting yourself in a new way with love and consistency, but not any of that toxic discipline. There's a right way, there's a wrong way. I'm going to punish myself if I forget to do it. Like, we're leaving that, we're done with that. We're done with that. You can just leave that in the past. That's an old story. We're moving into something new and something much more pleasurable.
Yes, absolutely. And going back to, I think, rituals and practices that you were talking about earlier, just bringing that full circle and really finding something that you can devote yourself to, that you do enjoy turning up time and time again to.
As a business owner, a place that might be fun to start is bringing a little bit of this inquiry into your business planning process. So, using an Oracle deck, for example, when you're planning for the month or for the quarter, pull a card, right? Weave this into what you're already doing to run your business. If starting with a personal practice feels like way too far away, you can absolutely weave these ideas into the current infrastructure of your business and just see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I know earlier I wrote it down about the ego, and I wonder if anybody's going to listen and go, but she said that she was going to put a pin in
Oh
it,
my
and were
gosh.
we going to come back to it? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we have enough time to cover it today, but I just wanted to put it out there just in case you did want to say anything about it before we
Okay,
wrap
let
up.
me say thank you. See, this is why I got to put post-it notes on things. Otherwise, shiny object syndrome. Yeah, just that it is real that, and you said it's been real for you too, which I'm curious to hear more about at some point. But when you do pivot and you give yourself permission to take a leap of faith into something that you're like, this is kind of wild, never thought I would say that I wanted to do X, but I do, and I'm going to try it. Great. When you take that leap of faith, just know that just because you're taking a leap of faith doesn't mean that the journey is going to be easy once you land, right? And your ego isn't going to like it because your ego was getting a lot of positive feedback at the other thing that you were doing, the job, the business, whatever it was. Your ego loved that. Your ego loves being good at things, loves getting positive feedback. And when you jump into something that you're going to be brand new at, where you're having to rediscover how to walk, how to talk, your ego is going to be really pissed at you. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you like, what is wrong with you? So prepare yourself for self-criticism, right? For like self-judgment, and just know that it's just your ego having a tantrum.
Yes.
No big deal. It's just your ego having a tantrum. You can just send your ego some love, being like, I know this is really hard for you. I know this, it's really hard to be a beginner. It's really hard to not know what we're doing. It's really hard to feel uncertain and to feel scared. And that's what's happening here is we feel scared. We feel vulnerable. We're starting something brand new. Soothe yourself, soothe your ego, and enjoy the journey because it's actually really cool that we get the opportunity in this lifetime to try brand new things at all stages of our life.
Yes. And I think that's a wonderful way to end, because one of the things that's coming up for me is, what about those times when we do have to stretch our comfort zone, when we do maybe have to lean into something that on the surface we don't want to do? And actually, I love the way that you've kind of talked about the ego there and soothing the ego and then dropping back into kind of the body and enjoying the journey, so that you can see how both of those things are still possible.
Yes,
Thank
both
you.
of those things. And just celebrating having a child's mind. Like, that's like, there's so much play and richness and discovery that we get to experience when we're brand new at something and we have this child's mind, this beginner's mind. You're not clouded by anything. Everything is brand new. Everything is possible. I definitely think it's something to celebrate. So yes, thank you so much for bringing us back around to that point.
No, I'm really glad that
Mhm.
it has brought us back full circle. So thank you so, so much. Now I know you have your podcast Deeply Rested, and you also have a newsletter. How often does the newsletter go out? Bi-weekly
Twice
or
a week,
monthly?
Mondays and Thursdays. Monday is like a resource email. So Monday you get a collection of deeply rested resources. And then Thursday is some kind of article or share from me. Yeah. And then there's the Deeply Rested podcast, which is full of lots of conversations very similar to this one. And our whole mission is to help people doing good work in the world take really good care of themselves. And this is a big part of how we do that. So thank you for having me. And I know Kate is going to be on the Deeply Rested podcast a little later this year, and I can't wait for that. So thank you so much.
No, it's been a really rich conversation. Finish your sentences, Kate. And I'm going to be leaving this feeling soothed, definitely soothed.
I love that. So thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much. So we will make sure we share the link. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest. I have loved having you on. I have loved the conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you have any takeaways or any questions, please do reach out to me either through Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook at Kate Carter Coaching, or you can email me at kate@katecarter.co.uk. I would always love to hear your feedback and the things that you have taken from the podcast. If you know of any other highly sensitive people, then please do share this so that I can reach more and support more highly sensitive people to embrace their strengths and gifts. As a thank you, I will pick a winner every month for a free 50-minute coaching session with me. Thank you so much.